All right, so here we have another 2019 hunt. We had a little public land, private land action going on. There's some crazy things that transpire here. The first thing that happened this morning was I think you and I were both hunting in the stand that I ended up going to in the afternoon, and we had seen this buck that we call the half rack buck because every year he breaks off half of his rack that we've seen him. He's a big 8, just gnarly, big body, and he just ends up fighting.
Something with his bases, like they're just not very strong.
That's probably weird. Right. I wonder if it's the same base too. He has broken both of them.
Yeah, you got good footage of him being a giraffe.
Pretty much. So anyway, I'm back at this property this afternoon. It's a piece of public land, and we have split up. Casey and I.
And if you notice, just in the background of this clip, there's a well-worn trail to where you're set up right here. Mm-hmm. Why is that?
Because I'm not the only one hunting this place at this time.
Yeah, so this is a tree that we've been to quite a few times. Mm-hmm. And somebody this year decided to stake claim to the tree and leave their stand there. Yeah. Well, you don't get to do that on public land, okay? And I know that kind of the unwritten rule is like, well, you can't hunt somebody else's stand, but why would you? Well, it's different in this situation because this is a place that we know. Yeah. It can't just be like, well, we just let this guy take this from us this year.
It's also like this is one of the trees to be in. On the property. Yeah. Like if you're gonna kill a deer, and not just look at them from a quarter mile away, like you kind of got to be in this tree. So there's a stand here. You and I had seen it this prior, the morning that we hunted. So when I went back in this afternoon, I thought, well, that guy went in there this morning. I'll just go in. I'm here. Nobody's at the parking lot. And I'll just walk in and sit in his tree stand because we saw it this morning.
Surely he won't come in there with my truck parked here.
Right. Surely he won't. So
let's play.
Let's see what happens. That just done my interview there, and now we are looking at the property.
That view gets me hype.
Yeah. So here's KC. He is setting up on a permission piece according to the text that you may or may not be able to see.
With no punctuation.
Hates it. Windy. I had to cut a bunch of wind noise out of this. We haven't always had all the equipment we need, and that just comes from being poor and having a hard time spending several hundred more dollars on different mics and stuff. But we're getting it. We're getting it all worked out.
This happens there all the time. Like
congregation.
Yeah, they just mess around right there and all those sticks and lick on them. It's like a huge licking brush pile.
Yeah.
Like it's weird.
That's the other 8, right?
We never saw that deer.
It's hard to tell from that angle.
Ooh, that's the big 8.
Yeah,
that is him. Ugh.
Backpack shot.
That's a weird looking deer.
That is weird. Devil deer.
He is
creepy.
Beams do weird stuff,
Go
man.
straight up, dude. It's a bull. One of those big bulls, and they had the giant Watusis, yeah.
The old Watusi buck.
That's a Watusi buck.
It is windy. You can see the camera shake. That's because my tree is moving. Look, another
different
little
buck.
deer. Yeah.
Gonna lick on some branches.
He thought about it.
He did.
I'm not quite big enough to do that.
He's like, I don't want to put my neck up there.
Moving around. Dobies.
Just chilling. Just hanging in the shadows. Oh, what is going on?
Oh, no.
Golden hour. What could this be? Oh, my goodness.
What a giant buck. Just so big that he's just dropping corn out his mouth.
Look at those bases, man. Just gnarly. Why aren't you shooting this deer?
He's at 50 yards. And I'm assuming that there's a good chance he comes closer. It's windy. I can't take that shot. 50 yards is real far.
So he came from away from you.
Yes.
Thinking he might leave out towards you,
Towards
right?
me. Yeah. And I was smart enough to put that corn pile 50 yards from the tree and went, oh, that's where he looks real big right there.
Look at the neck definition.
Dude, big slob. We actually think that this buck is possibly a deer that we encountered the year before.
Yes.
And grunted in.
Yeah.
He's big.
He is big,
and
man.
we saw this deer in 20... Well, I'm sorry. We had this deer on camera in 2020.
Yeah, and he's even bigger and a little more Even a little more kind of like high rag looking, but he is for sure the same deer, just a toad, same shape.
Like, this is one of those deer that, like, if you were to shoot him and walk up on the ground, you just wouldn't. He just grows, you know.
Yeah,
and here he goes, just comes out
going
the way
up
it came in.
back the other way. Were there does back there?
Yeah, those does that you saw in the frame earlier. I'm like, oh, look at him. They ended up. This is
How far
quite
is
a
he
bit
here?
later. He's like probably 60 yards.
Oh my God.
And those does were out there in that corn, and he knew that was the way he was going to go around and get to them. And now he smelled them, and he's going to go over to the CRP field and does not care about my grunts. Which,
This is early November, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, this is probably November 8th.
Mm-hmm.
Look how much bigger he is than those does right there.
And those does are big, dude.
Yeah, now those are like the younger ones.
Yeah.
but they're still big animals.
They're corn fed their whole life.
Look at that brisket on that thing right there.
Ugh.
That's probably, I mean, that might be the biggest body deer I've ever seen. Now, your Iowa buck that we got real close to killing is also a big body deer.
Yeah,
It's hard to
sure.
say. When we're referencing all these other deer we've seen, y'all can just check out the links. We'll put as many as we can in the description below, or just watch some of our season playlist stuff. And then all these does just
Come within
live.
range, pretty much.
Yeah, so that closest one was at like 28 yards. Oh, here we go.
So a guy came in. If you can read the text there, a guy came in, kicked me out of the stand on public, and I didn't know the rule for sure on if he had the right to do that. But technically, I had the right to be sitting in his stand and using it. So, you know, look at that elk.
Big.
So what I'm saying here basically is we got a permission piece right up the road. It's like 80 acres, you know, just a small thing that we got permission on. And I thought, well, since he's kicking me out, kind of he was nice, but it's kind of a jerk move a little bit. And he kicks me out, so I'm like, I'll go down to this little permission piece and just see what happens. You never know, it's the rut, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I end up getting down to this little tree line in the middle of this cornfield and seeing a good buck. So now you can hear me doing some grunting. He's acting like he doesn't hear me.
You Mr. Aggressive over here.
Well, he's acting like he doesn't hear me at all. You know, it's windy, obviously, like it was during your footage. He ignores the calls, as it says there, and then he's kind of going down to check does, kind of like your buck did, you know. Here, you get a look at him here, I believe. It's hard to, I was all freehand, you know, and trying to call.
Good looking deer, man.
Getting a spot. He's a 10-point. Just a solid deer, man.
He definitely, his brow tines won't make you think this, but he looks like the deer that I saw while driving the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Look at them cows.
What are they doing? There's deer back there, too.
They're chasing each other around back in there.
So there he is. He's snooping some does, and I'm trying to get in the right position. I can't remember if I had a decoy with me or not, but I did have antlers, I believe. There I am trying to I'm knowing, you know, at this point, 2019, I'm like, this is probably not going to happen. I mean, it's just, we've been on the ground for like 3 years trying to do this. It's been difficult in open country, especially when you're by yourself trying to self-film. I'm thinking, I'll just get GoPro footage of it, whatever, you know. I really want to kill a deer. And this ends up happening.
I don't know where that buck went. I was making a move to get a good shot on him, about 10-yard move. And, I mean, he just wasn't where he was headed. He was running over to this tree line. And he was close. I don't think I spooked him. I don't think there's a way I could have spooked him. I was in a ditch, but there's still a doe out here where he was at, and another doe now. And then there's 3 more does over here a ways. So, I mean, I don't think I ran him off, but I mean, who knows? Maybe they were glad to see him leave and they just kept on beating. Usually when a deer flags, everything gets weird, but nothing's weird right now. The only thing weird for me is that there isn't a buck in the field now.
It was a weird deal, man. I literally moved just a few yards and he was gone as soon as I looked back up. So then I turn around after looking at these does and kind of glass and see what happens. I turn around and this sucker is behind me, like walking towards me. He had circled way around behind me and come in. He had heard all my calls, but he didn't ever act like it. He literally comes a huge 180-degree circle almost and comes right at me.
Dang, that was quick.
Yeah, I know. And that's why I missed. You know, you make decisions and you kind of live and learn, and that's how the Indians used to do it, right? You had to shoot at a bunch of stuff before you were a good
Slowly
shot.
leaves confused.
He did, man. He was coming at me, and I guessed him. I can't remember what it was. I think I guessed him for 35, and I ended up shooting basically underneath him. And I think he was a little bit further, and I think I also got really, because when I drew, I was like laid down real low underneath all that brush, and it was the hardest draw I've ever made. And I was like worn out when I got it drawn back, and so I think
Harder than when you drew to shoot Frank?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It was for sure harder. And so, like, I think my bow arm just fell down some as I was getting ready to release.
Yeah.
I was just tired. And the whole thing just all together just made a low shot. I found my arrow, it was,
That's good.
It went right below him and hit corn stalks.
Saved you some money.
Yeah.
He thought I was a doe, I guess.
Yeah, he saw me and thought I was a doe, I think. 'Cause
Man,
he
it's
was like,
nice
he
when
kept
they are
coming.
hyped up. Goodness
I know,
gracious. So
dude.
could you have just like
Yeah.
chilled and he would have came
Probably
closer?
so. But it was just a weird deal where
Oh, I know.
he did stop also and look
Yeah.
at me after a second. And so I just didn't know. And I thought, man,
I just dumped water all
where's
over
your-
my
where's
leg.
your- you got a hole in your lip there. He's a good bug, man.
He is, man. It's a great bug.
He's solid. Like, I was just like, the whole situation, the story that was going on, I was like, this is just too cool to not shoot at this deer, man. Like, even if it is early November, that's a great bug.
Coaster events this afternoon has been after getting kidnapped.
He looks awesome.
Yeah.
The tree on public. I can't believe I did that, man. I should have found a way to range, I guess, but in that situation.
You needed one of them $800 sights on your bow.
I know it, dude. Is that how much them things
I
are?
don't know. I think they're expensive.
I bet they are.
Out in the field, I watched him for several minutes. Spooked.
Dude, I love like 2 years later at least watching my face on these. I don't like watching them for about 6 months though. It was a pretty sunset, man. I've seen some good sunsets from that spot actually. I almost killed a deer here later that year too. Twice, I think.
Really?
I had close encounters with bucks within like 100 yards.
Lost or not.
Yeah.
I ranged.
So, anyway, just a crazy
45. So your arrow's
Oh.
45. That's what you just said.
day. Yeah. Yeah. So I ranged from the arrow that I found at 45, which the arrow, died in front of him. I don't know how far it skipped, I guess is what I'm saying, or skidded, to a stop, but I'm sure it came to a stop pretty quick. So it was maybe a little bit further than I thought, which in open country it's hard, dude.
Oh,
It's
man.
hard.
Especially when you're looking, like, I'm sure that you've been looking at least deer on trail camera or something from Texas before this, and it's like, well, these deer are a third bigger again, so it just really messes with your perception.
Yeah.
But what do you think that, like, you can really take away from that hunt right there?
I think a big key to me is like during the early November rut when they're hyped up like that and the deer's coming in after I've been calling and stuff. It was weird to think about because at the time I didn't feel like it was that hyped up because he wasn't listening to my calls. But looking back on it, I'm like, man, I should have just ranged him. I should have just like, and then pulled back. And
Well,
I
if he
would've
was
known.
at 45, would you have shot at him?
No, but he didn't stop until I drew.
Oh, okay.
So like he saw me kind of moving because I had to move my body to get squared up to shoot, and he stopped and then he kept coming. I was like, oh my goodness. So I drew back, and that took forever because it was like I was literally like drawing my bow like this, like almost like a crossbow, And I think if I'd have just ranged him and I'd have seen it 45 or 50, then I would have been like, okay, well he moved up 10 yards or 15 yards or whatever, That's at least had a better idea of what it was. Also looking back, I probably won't use somebody's stand again, just because like I'm just not trying to get into a confrontation with deadly weapons, even if
I
they are
did that.
bows,
I hunted that same tree without you the first day. I got there before you, and I actually hung my stand but used his steps
Yeah.
because I didn't want to sit in his stand.
Right.
So technically, the guy could have came in there and just unscrewed those steps. Oh, by the way, he was using screw-ins, which he wasn't supposed to do.
Yeah.
So that's cool. But
Yeah.
So
I think that's another lesson though, is that I would not. I would probably, especially now that we have saddles and stuff, man. It's just lightweight. Like I'll probably just take them in. But
it is cool though that you can see that you just kind of went and made something happen. It's a pretty good thing to
Oh,
feel.
yeah.
Like you were in there late, just went in there on the ground and actually got a shot on the ground, which is something we don't really get a good chance to do a lot.
Yeah.
We get 50 yards away a lot, but which you might have been 50 yards
Yeah,
away. So.
it definitely might have. You know, I think like that's something I learned from you, man. Is like just the optimism, always like going, man. If there's daylight, there's a chance. You
Oh
know what
yeah,
I mean?
dude. I do not like to go home before it is dark.
No.
Not the case.
No. So, what about you? What did you learn from that big old slob?
It's the very basic concept that you don't set up a bait pile 50 yards from your tree. I think I will continue to say that. Now, however, we hunted that place this year, and we set up like 12 and 15 yards from that bait pile and didn't kill something there either. So, I don't know. What I've learned is that particular spot is a great place to see deer from, but it's pretty hard to set up in the right spot to shoot one. It's very strange.
They're so random in there. Like the habitat's so broken and random that it's hard to figure out exactly where they're going to come from on any particular day.
What those deer did, I never saw any deer do all year this year. They all came from the west, and both the does and the buck came from the south, and then went out in the cornfield. And no deer did that to me this year.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on?
I don't know.
Maybe it's a crop rotation thing or something, maybe, and that changed this year. I don't know. But either way, I will go back and hunt that spot because there's a lot of big deer around. So sooner or later, it's all going to come together.
Well, I think the key for us is in success going forward is to remember those things. And also to remember, this is your element.
Living it.